Welcome to this episode of our program, Daily Debate. As usual, we will be discussing an important debate. Today we'll be speaking about this presidential initiative in which the president launched in 2019 with the aim of changing the life or the livelihood of people, particularly in the countryside, and be able to overcome the repercussions or what have been seen in decades in the country, and change the lives of people from different angles. The president has already launched this, as I said, this initiative in 2019 by giving instructions to the Minister of Solidarity to develop Egypt's 1,000 poorest villages, and the first stage was officially launched in 2021 with the number targeted of villages from 1,000 to 4,500. That is covering 58% of the population. The president has declared that this initiative is the initiative of Egypt's new republic. We'll be speaking about this initiative in details in our episode tonight. Before we delve into our discussion, first let me read the top stories of the day. And Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli announced on Thursday the launch of the National Strategy for Climate Change, COP27. In his address during the conference, Dr. Madbouli reiterated that the national strategy aims at achieving sustainable growth and reducing emissions effect. The Premier also said that the state has taken several measures for adopting and easing effects of climate change. Dr. Madbouli asserted that Egypt's 2030 vision guarantees improving quality of the citizens' living conditions. Meanwhile, Dr. Madbouli directed the quick launch of the COP27 conference website during a session discussing the impact of the climate change over several sectors. Ministers of Environment, Planning and Petroleum illustrated the procedures taken by the ministries to confront the climate change repercussions. The strategy itself focuses on 5 main objectives, including cutting emissions in various sectors to maintain sustainable economic growth, promoting the use of renewable energy sources, producing energy from waste, and using alternative energy forms like green hydrogen. To our next top story of the day, and the Monetary Policy Committee, the MPC, decided to raise the Central Bank of Egypt's overnight deposit rate, lending rate, and the rate of the main operation by 20 basis points to 11.25%, 12.25%, and 11.75% respectively. The discount rate was also raised by 200 basis points to 11.75%. It said it decided that raising policy rates is necessary to contain inflationary pressures, which is consistent with achieving price stability over the medium term. It also referred to the central bank's trend towards tightening policy rates and reducing asset purchase programs with the aim of containing increased inflationary concerns in their respective countries. The central bank has already taken the decision and has raised the interest rates today, just declared by the governor of the Central Bank of Egypt a few hours ago. Before we delve into our discussion, let me here welcome our distinguished guest, Dr. Sahar Damaty, economic and banking expert. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, it's my honor.
It's all our pleasure. And before I delve into our topic of the day, I guess that raising interest rates is a very important declaration today.
Of course, it's quite important. We were all waiting for it. Let me give you just a quick introduction. After the Ukrainian and the Russian
War.
or crisis, put it this way.
It is.
A lot of things has taken place. Number one, increase in the price of oil and gas, increase in the price of major commodities, primarily wheat, maize, and so on, increase of the price of raw materials necessary for production, and so on and so forth. All of these sanctions led to substantial inflation across the world, with percentages way beyond our imagination. As a matter of fact, for instance, the United States, 8.5%, the highest in 40 years. UK, 7.5%, the highest in 20 years. So I think it's a very big issue. And everybody is scared that we move from one economic stage to a worse one, which is from inflation to what you call a stagflation, whereby you would find that the purchasing capacity would decrease substantially, and you move to a state of inflation, high prices, and recession. And this is dramatic and a very big economic crisis worldwide. Egypt also has suffered from inflationary problems over the last few months. We started with, at the beginning, we had the central bank objective is not to exceed 9%, which is the highest level, i.e. the objective is 7 plus 2 minus 2, but so far plus 2 would give you a 9%. So the first time, that was in March, at that time inflation reached 10.5, and then it moved recently, last month, to 13%, 13.1, which is quite high. Accordingly, central bank increased the interest rate to become 11%. From this perspective, since the beginning of the inflationary pressures, it increased by 3% across the last few months, rendering, again, as we say, that the objective maximum 9, plus 3, it's 12, so we're still below the 13.1 inflation that is currently taking place. So I believe the central bank has taken a very good initiative by doing that. The repercussion of interest rate, increasing interest rate, is always across the world leads to slowdown in economic activities, hence leads also to decrease in GDP in general. However, as a kind of mitigant, the central bank has put an initiative with an amount of 450 billion Egyptian pounds in order to provide loans to industries, agricultural industries, and contractors with a good interest rate amounting to 8%. So this is kind of balanced a little bit the strong effect of the increase in interest rate, which is also projected to continue to increase across the last period if the situation that we are living in worldwide
Deteriorates, further deteriorates.
persists. If it persists, inflation is going to increase.
At least we're trying to put some balanced decisions in order to mitigate or in order to have a kind of...
You have put, first of all, you've increased the interest rate, that's correct, in order to decrease the inflationary pressure, pull the excess liquidity from the markets, and so on. That was a very strong action done by the central bank. So I believe that was the right act. But at the same time, there was some kind of a balance through the initiative of the 450 billion. So from this perspective, I think the decision was properly taken.
Yes. Here, you spoke as a banker and an expert, but also people would really want to understand what does this mean in a simple way. How would that reflect on their daily lives? Because We are aware that, yes, the country, the leadership are trying to put initiatives in order to be able to contain these shock waves of the crisis by putting some wise decisions that can be reflected positively on the economy, with some help of them for the industrial and investors and on all this. But the very common citizen, how will that reflect on his life, so people would really be able to come and understand exactly what's going on?
If we're talking about the citizen right now is feeling the strong impact of increasing prices.
Indeed.
What is inflation? Is an increase in prices. This increase in prices, of course, is hindering the individual to buy according to the budget, to purchase everything according to his budget, in a very simple way. So in order to put solutions for those hikes in prices or increase in prices during to the international situation that all the world is living in, not only Egypt, so there are instruments used in order to decrease the impact of inflation and over time decrease inflation. Once inflation or those increasing prices decrease, then there will be what we call a stable price, which is the main objective of the MPC or the Monetary Policy Committee. Okay, so this is in very simple words. The individual has been given a very good initiative by a certificate with an 18% interest rate. And a lot of individuals actually did go and put all their savings in this certificates, which is rendering a monthly income for a year. So that was good. So far, this certificate attracted approximately 662 billion Egyptian pounds from Egyptians. Not only that, it also attracted money coming from Arabs, attracted money coming from Egyptians living abroad. So that's very important. In addition to that, a lot of individuals, if we're speaking about citizens, actually broke their savings in foreign currency and put the money in the certificate of 18%. From this perspective, in the first 2 weeks only, you also got additional $3.5 billion from the breaking of deposits in foreign currency and moving to the 18 pound certificates, 18% pound certificate.
Yes.
So I think that was good for the individual.
So I guess we're not giving citizens bad news. In fact, that would be, through time, good news for them.
For the individual,
yes.
What we can say is that the central bank has taken the proper steps in order to decrease the impact of inflation. That's in simple words.
These are the simplest words that can be heard.
Words.
Yes, that can be heard and understood by citizens.
Has put into consideration the impact of what's going on worldwide right now and the inflationary pressure on companies, specifically industries, agricultural industries, and contractors through an initiative of 450 billion with 8% interest rate. For the citizens, they have the certificate of the 18%, which is a certificate
and other
for
certificates with good also interest rates.
Well, it's 18% for 1 year, rendering income on a monthly basis.
Yes, indeed. I guess we'll see through time how will things develop to be, so we can have another sit and discussion to continue this discussion.
Sure.
Now we go on to our main topic of tonight, and before we dive into our discussion, let's first have this quick look on this report. President Sisi follows up decent life projects developments. Let's watch.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi held a meeting with Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli and Minister of Housing, Utilities and Urban Communities Asim El-Gazzar to follow up the executive position of the Decent Life Initiative's projects. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi said the meeting reviewed the executive position of the Ministry of Housing projects related to the Decent Life Initiative. The President urged the officials to continue cooperation and coordination between the relevant state agencies to implement the various national projects related to the Decent Life Initiative, to develop the Egyptian countryside with periodic field follow-up of the executive position and adherence to implementation timetables. On his part, Al-Gazzar presented the efforts made by the Ministry of Housing in the framework of projects related to the first phase of the Decent Life Initiative nationwide, especially in the sectors of sewage, water, and treatment plants, in addition to various service projects and the Decent Housing Project. President El-Sisi kicked off the first stage of Egypt's groundbreaking anti-poverty project, the Decent Life Haya Karima Initiative, at the first conference on July 15, 2021. El-Sisi declared that this initiative would kickstart Egypt's new republic, especially in the Egyptian countryside. During the meeting, President El-Sisi also followed up the ongoing projects to develop the historic Cairo area, which aims to restore the civilized face of Cairo in a manner consistent with its ancient history, especially at the tourism, entertainment, and cultural levels, including the ongoing development process in Ain al-Sira Park and its surrounding areas. The President was also concerned with the development of the triangle area of Maspero, in addition to the development of the Nile Corniche through Mamsha Ahl Masr project, which is one of the important entertainment and tourism projects. The executive position of utilities, facilities, and services in various cities and new urban communities at the national level was also reviewed, especially with regard to the new administrative capital and the new city of Al Alamein.
Right, welcome back. And what we are speaking about is Decent Life. And this Decent Life initiative that was launched by the President has end results and have goals. The main goal of such initiative is that the government could be able to utilize overall investments amounting to 800 billion by the end of the project, demonstrating that Egypt is tackling poverty in a very aggressive manner. It really wants to change the scene in the country, making the people aspiration for a decent life exist. Let me get back to Dr. Sahar Damaty, and we're speaking about this initiative that is covering from 58 to 60% of the population. From your point of view, why the leadership insisted on starting such a huge initiative?
This is the best initiative. And I really salute the President for such a project, because you are changing the life of the individuals who have been suffering for ages from lack of water, sewage, and proper housing. And what you're doing here is really giving a decent life to every individual, healthy life to individuals, human, civilian life to the individuals living in the suburbs and the urban cities of Egypt, and in the rural cities of Egypt. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a fantastic project, and it was a dream of every Egyptian that the standard of poverty in the rural areas is alleviated. You're talking here about 60% of the population from the poor areas. accordingly, by going through such a huge project in more than 4,600 villages across the Republic, first of all, you're decreasing poverty. You are making the Egyptian healthier than before by providing them with proper water, with sewage, with proper housing that they never had before. So this is a great development. You're preserving the water because you are building across the sides of the water, making sure that those who can approach this water or use the water, they would use it only for special purpose, not for animals and everything else. So that was, and also it will be good for the farming and agriculture and cultivation. So I believe this is a fantastic project.
Changing the scene in urban areas, urban communities, in villages, rural areas, how was that important in order to be able to sustain with the Egypt's vision for sustainable development 2030?
Well, actually, to start with, it was within the strategy of the president when he first came. And secondly, it became a very important component of Egypt's sustainability strategy, going to not only 2030, I think it's even beyond that, up to 2052, the second strategy. By covering all of these villages, the 4,600, then you would finish completely the target, even for the beyond the 2030. So I think this is within the strategy, and it is going to be implemented through three stages. First stage has been completed, and now they are moving to the second stage. I believe that in a couple of years, they will be completely through with all the project, with the implementation of this project across Egypt.
When we speak about decent life, we're speaking about several pillars that are contained in this initiative. We're speaking about the social issue, we're speaking about the economic issue, and we are also speaking about the strategy, the overall strategy of the country in utilizing all that. So when we speak about the social one, we're speaking about education, services, education, health, all the services that are given to the citizen, plus an important point, which is empowering in terms of the small and medium projects that are micro, macro, small, and all these kinds of projects given even to those to people, because it's not just the infrastructure or the housing, it's also giving them a future. How important was that, and how do you view this very particular pillar?
Well, I view it as a cornerstone for poverty, alleviation of poverty, number one, development of villages, providing proper health, primarily for Egyptians living in the rural areas, providing them with other services and improving the type of services that they are offered, that they have currently in terms of education, in terms of hospitals, in terms of all types of services. So I believe that it's an incredible project. It's an incredible project, and I cannot wait until it's fully completed.
We're all with the same wish. Let me get back to this issue. So people would really understand the facilities that are given for entrepreneurs and startups from the government and from the institutions, particularly from banks. Yes, indeed. Can you further illustrate how it is done and how are those projects being promoted?
Okay, SMEs or small medium micro enterprises are very important economically for development, and they are the biggest wheels in terms of employment. So they also help in employment significantly. There has been a strong initiative by His Excellency the President back a few years ago with an amount of 200 billion in banks in order to finance SMEs across the Republic. This was increased further. Currently, we have in the banking sector approximately 400 billion Egyptian pounds that has been already provided to finance SMEs. In addition to this, there was a condition imposed on all banks that the SMEs financing should contribute by 20%, and currently it's becoming even 25% of the portfolio of each bank, of the lending portfolio of each bank. So there is a great and substantial efforts done by banks in that sense. In addition, banks also, to help this initiative succeed, they have opened a lot of mini branches, not only in governorates, but governorates and in villages across the Republic. So you have also mini branches. Most of them would be dealing with SMEs. In addition to this, there was before what we call the social fund. Right now we have what we call the Organization for SME. This organization is spread across the Republic, and they have different offices across the Republic, and they help SMEs with their feasibility studies, ability in order for them to finalize all license needed in order for them to start production, providing them whenever it's possible to be part of big exhibitions in order to enable them to market their products, and also giving them a lot of training courses, how to prepare simple balance sheets, how to account for the products, how and so on. Training them in their field of specialization. So there has been a lot of training across the last, 20 years. But more has been actually implemented across the last 7 or 8 years. So SMEs, small and medium, actually got a lot of attention from His Excellency the President up to banks and governorates and so on. In addition to this, there is a lot of companies or NGOs, first NGOs, non-governmental organizations that exist across Egypt, and they are helping micro-enterprises. What are micro-enterprises? Let's say a female aiming for a simple employment to provide for her living, so they can offer her a small loan and revolve it across time to enable her to live. 700 organizations or 800 organizations have been, NGOs, have been acknowledged by the central bank. And there are companies right now that do provide finance for SMEs. So this area has grown substantially, and it's good because it's attracting employment in villages. So this helps in the growth of the economy.
But you spoke about two issues at a time. The issue of 2022, the year for the civil society, the President has announced, and the other is how the leadership and the government are trying to attract more private sector into even the presidential initiatives, the important presidential initiatives that are taking place. Before we continue on with that, because that's a big question that I would like you to answer the importance of that. Before we speak about that, let's take our second report here. In Decent Life presidential initiatives exceeds £800 billion in costs, according to the Prime Minister. Let's watch.
Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli said that the Decent Life presidential initiative is rebuilding the country and that its cost currently exceeds £800 billion during an intervention at the Egyptian family's iftar event that was held under the auspices of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Madbouli also said that working in each village of the initiative is a challenge in itself because the villages were initially established without much planning. He explained that the cost of replanning is 3 times more than starting work on empty land and that there is no alternative to implementing the project. The Prime Minister noted that it creates millions of job opportunities for young people who were forced to travel, whether to major cities or abroad, in search of job opportunities. He also pointed out that the unemployment rate decreased despite the population increase thanks to projects that created job opportunities and currently stands at 7.5%. Furthermore, Madbouli pointed out that the state puts a large amount of spending on projects while the private sector faced difficult conditions that made it unable to do anything as it was barely able to maintain its existing status. He stressed that the country is capable of development and progress and that it has achieved record numbers witnessed by the whole world despite the existing challenges, stressing the need to make efforts for decades to achieve the desired progress.
Welcome back, and back to you, Dr. Sahar. And Sahar, we were speaking about the year of civil society and the year of integrating the private sector into the economy. Please illustrate.
Actually, there has been a big initiative put by the government and acknowledged by the president. It's still on a draft basis in order to incorporate the private sector in the economy, according to which, number one, the public sector or the government is going to pull out of 70 plus sectors for the private sector to become part of it, or part of it to replace the public sector completely. We're talking here about light and heavy industries. Light industries like glass, like shoes, like apparel, like that's a light, and others, and of course, and also when it comes to the heavy industries, talking about iron and steel and cement, and that's the heavy industries. So there is a plan that is currently under discussion and put in place or to be finalized for the complete transformation from public or government to private sector companies. That's number one. In addition to this, there is an intention to create holding companies for biggest hotels, for hotels that are owned by the government. Also holding companies for the for a number of for other sectors as well under the umbrella of public sector, also to be incorporated under holding company, and all of these are going to be put in the stock market in order to activate the stock market.
Into the economy. So they are integrating the
Exactly.
private sector into the formal or replacing the...
Yeah, it's not integrating, they are going to replace them completely.
Replace them.
They will integrate in terms of they will be a part of the major wheel of the development of the economy in general, whether through complete ownership of sectors where the government had some competitive advantage across the competitive advantage over these companies, over the private sector. Now it's not going to be the case. Or also, in order to activate the stock market and to make it more active, and so they are going to put a lot of new companies, government companies, in the stock market. So this is completely
give enormous opportunities for investors to come.
Not only investors, Egyptian investors.
We're speaking about investors at
Private
large.
sector who used to feel competition from the side of the government, this is not going to be the case anymore. So they are going to be the owners of the sectors and the prime players in those sectors. That's the private sector. There will be no competition. So this will also help the Egyptians to participate more in their economy, to invest more in their economy. And then also you're offering a very big opportunity to foreign investors to come and invest in the country. We've had some foreign investors, for instance, the funds from Abu Dhabi who invested in 5 companies, one of which was a bank, 18% from one of the biggest private banks in Egypt, and then 5 companies from private and public companies. So this was quite important, and this was done through the stock market. And I believe there is also a strong direction for the same to be done either through the Qatari investment or the Qatari funds, in order also to get in and to participate.
We're open to all
companies.
foreign direct investments, Arab and non-Arab, definitely.
Both Egyptians and foreigners.
So we can really say that the leadership and the government have put the base in order to prepare the atmosphere for investors to come. So when they come, they would really have the chance to really contribute in the proper way to their own country. Can we say that?
I agree with you. It's more, I see more that private sector will take a much bigger role in the economy than they used to take before. They will be the major driver of the economy. It doesn't mean that the government is pulling 100% out, but they will still remain in much fewer sectors than they used to be before. And this is, of course, because infrastructure or and some other sectors are core for government to be part of it. But the private sector will be the major player. So not only because they are helping them in order to replace them in those sectors, but also doing a lot of effort to decrease bureaucracy, which is very important, as well as through different means, the usage of technology in order to be able to enable companies to get their license in one day. So there is a lot of improvements in that level also, which will improve the investment climate in general.
I see, Dr. Sahar, that you came today with all the positive announcements. Right. Taking the private sector role into such a big initiative like the Decent Life, how is that important?
It's
for both sides, and I'm speaking for changing the course of life and the life phase in the countryside and all this, and for the investors themselves.
I'll tell you something. Incorporating the private sector and enabling them to play, and not only enabling, and also helping them to be the driver of the future economic development, is the strategy of Egypt for the next period. They are starting with the Egyptian entrepreneurs And then this also will be very attractive for the foreign investors to come to Egypt. You cannot attract foreign investors if you don't see the Egyptian investors.
Indeed.
Really.
Satisfying the
Yeah.
local investors.
Exactly.
Indeed. You are quite right. And I guess by such good announcements, hopes and wishes, I'll leave it here because my time is out. Dr. Sahar Damaty, economic and banking expert, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dear viewers, many thanks for watching. Next debate would be on Sunday with more to cover throughout the week. So until next Sunday, it's good night.